The first time Daniel Harper heard about Black Hollow Forest, he dismissed the rumors as folklore. A whispering forest that called people by name? It sounded like something straight out of a ghost story. But when 3 hikers vanished within a month, leaving behind only their half-packed tents and untouched supplies, he knew there was something worth investigating. He arrived in Ashwood, the closest town to the forest, on a crisp October morning. The air carried the scent of damp leaves and wood smoke, and the townspeople eyed him warily as he stepped into the local diner. They knew an outsider when they saw one. An old man behind the counter, his name tag read Earl, set down a steaming cup of coffee and fixed Daniel with a hard stare. "You're here for the forest, aren't you?" Daniel didn't bother denying it. "I'm a journalist. I write for the Clarion Review. Thought I'd cover the disappearances." Earl shook his head. "You'd be better off turning around, son." Daniel leaned in. "I've read the reports. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just gone. And those who went missing, they were last heard talking about voices in the trees." The old man exhaled sharply. "Not just voices. The forest calls your name. And if you answer..." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "You don't come back." Daniel studied him. There was no humor in his eyes, no sign of someone spinning a tall tale, just quiet certainty. "Who was the last person to disappear?" Earl's face darkened. "My nephew, Mark." Daniel tightened his grip on his coffee mug. "Tell me about Mark," he said. Earl hesitated, his fingers tapping against the counter. "Mark was careful. Grew up around here, knew that forest better than most. He wasn't the type to wander off." His voice grew quieter. "But he said he heard something calling him. A week later, he went back to prove it wasn't real. Never saw him again." Daniel jotted the details in his notebook. "And before him?" Earl's jaw tensed. "A woman named Lillian Rhodes. Hiker. She came through town same as you, asking questions. Said she wanted to document the phenomenon." He shook his head. "Search team found her backpack near the trailhead. That was it." A thick silence settled between them. Daniel could feel the weight of Earl's warning pressing down on him. But warnings had never stopped him before. "I want to see it for myself," Daniel said. Earl sighed. "You're a damn fool." "Maybe," Daniel admitted, tossing a few bills on the counter. "But I need to know the truth." By noon, Daniel had his gear packed. A flashlight, a digital recorder, and a notebook filled with names of the missing. The entrance to Black Hollow Forest was marked by a weathered wooden sign, the letters barely legible through the years of decay. As he stepped past the threshold, a hush fell over the woods. The usual sounds of the forest, birdsong, rustling leaves, seemed muted, as if swallowed by something unseen. He clicked on his recorder. October 12th. Entering Black Hollow Forest. Locals report a strange phenomenon, whispers calling names. Those who respond disappear. Let's see if there's any truth to it. He walked deeper into the woods, the crunch of his boots the only sound. The trees stretched high above him, their bare branches tangled like skeletal fingers. The deeper he went, the heavier the air felt, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something metallic. An hour passed. Nothing. Just an ordinary forest. Then, a whisper, faint, almost too soft to hear. "Daniel!" He froze, his breath caught in his throat. The voice was familiar, too familiar. It was his mother's voice, but that was impossible. She had been dead for 10 years. "Daniel!" A rustling in the trees. The hairs on his arms stood on end. He forced himself to stay silent, to resist the urge to respond. He wasn't sure how long he stood there, heart hammering in his chest, before the whisper faded, melting into the wind. Whatever was in these woods, it knew his name, and it wanted him to answer. Daniel forced himself to take slow, measured breaths. The rational part of his mind screamed that it was a trick, an auditory illusion, some natural phenomenon he hadn't yet understood. But another part, the one tightening his chest with dread, told him something else. Something was watching him. He pressed on, keeping his footsteps light. The deeper he went, the darker the forest became. The trees twisted unnaturally, their limbs gnarled like grasping hands. He checked his watch, 3:42 p.m., but the fading light made it feel closer to dusk. Then he saw it, the cabin. It sat nestled between the trees, the wood blackened with age. The windows were dark, the door slightly ajar, shifting with the wind. Something about it made his stomach twist. Daniel approached cautiously, nudging the door open with the end of his flashlight. The hinges groaned. Inside, dust hung in the air, disturbed only by his intrusion. The room was small, one table, a single chair, an old iron stove in the corner. On the walls, someone had carved symbols, deep scratches in the wood. And then he saw the notebook. It lay on the table, pages curling with age. He picked it up, flipping through hurried scrawls of ink. The words sent a chill through his spine. They whisper at night. They know me. They sound like my father. I saw Lillian today, but she's gone. Not real, just an echo. If you hear your name, do not answer. The final page was streaked with something dark, something that looked like dried blood. It's not the wind, it's not the trees, it's them, and they are waiting. A sharp creak sounded behind him. Daniel spun around. The door, it was closed. Daniel's breath came in short, sharp bursts. He swore he'd left the door open. Then a soft knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Every muscle in his body locked. Another knock. He took a step back, heart hammering against his ribs. He could see nothing through the grime-covered window, just the shifting shadows of the trees. Hello! The voice was a woman's, calm, controlled. Not a whisper. Not one of them. Daniel hesitated, then unlatched the door. A woman stood on the threshold, bundled in a thick jacket, a rifle slung over her shoulder. Her sharp green eyes studied him with suspicion. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, she said. Daniel exhaled. Depends who you ask. She didn't smile. Did you hear them yet? He nodded. They called my name. Her expression darkened. Then you're already in trouble. Daniel frowned. And who are you? She shifted her rifle. Amelia. My brother disappeared here a year ago. I came to find out why. Daniel hesitated, then stepped aside. You'd better come in. She didn't move. Instead, her gaze flicked past him, toward the notebook on the table. You found it. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You know whose it is? She swallowed. It was my brother's. The air in the cabin felt heavier now. Amelia took a step forward, lowering her voice. If you've already heard the whispers, we don't have much time. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. He had come to investigate a mystery. Now he was part of it. Amelia moved past Daniel, her boots scuffing against the wooden floor. She grabbed the notebook and flipped through the pages with practiced familiarity. You said they called your name? She asked, not looking up. Yes, Daniel replied. It was my mother's voice. Amelia exhaled sharply. That's how it starts. First, they whisper. Then, they watch. Daniel frowned. You mean the voices? Or something else? She met his gaze. Both. He shivered. How do you know? Amelia turned the notebook to the last page, the one smeared with dark stains. Because my brother, Ethan, wrote this the night before he disappeared. She tapped the final words. They are waiting. Daniel crossed his arms. You seem to know a lot about this. I've been coming here for months, she admitted, trying to understand how the forest works. People think it's a myth, but it's real. The whispers, the disappearances. She hesitated. It's like the forest is alive, chooses who stays and who doesn't. Daniel let her words sink in. His instincts told him this was more than just paranoia. What else do you know? He asked. Amelia flipped to an earlier page in the notebook and handed it to him. The page contained a list, 5 rules scrawled in frantic handwriting. Rules of Black Hollow Forest. 1. If you hear your name, do not answer. 2. If you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around. 3. If you see someone you know inside the forest, it is not them. 4. Never stay past nightfall. 5. If you hear the second whisper, run. Daniel's pulse quickened. What's the second whisper? Amelia's grip on the notebook tightened. It's the last thing you'll ever hear. A gust of wind rattled the cabin. Outside, the trees swayed, their branches creaking like old bones. Daniel shut the notebook. So what's our next move? Amelia slung her rifle off her shoulder. We find out what's really in this forest. They left the cabin as the light faded, moving carefully through the undergrowth. Amelia led, her steps deliberate, rifle ready. Tell me about the others, Daniel said. Amelia kept her eyes on the path. The missing? They all heard their names. Some vanished without a trace. Others left behind things. Daniel glanced at her. Things? She nodded. Journals. Recordings. Messages scratched into trees, like they were trying to warn whoever came next. Daniel pulled out his recorder and pressed record. October 12th, 5:17 p.m. I'm with Amelia Rhodes, sister of Ethan Rhodes, one of the missing. She believes the whispers are real, that they take people. We're heading deeper to... Snap. Both of them froze. Somewhere to their left, a branch had broken. Amelia lifted her rifle. Daniel switched off his recorder. Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Measured. Just beyond the trees. Daniel's throat went dry. You hear that? Amelia nodded once. The footsteps continued, circling them. Then, Daniel. His name drifted through the trees, a whisper so soft it barely rustled the leaves. And then he heard it again. Daniel. His stomach clenched. The second whisper. Amelia grabbed his wrist. Run. They tore through the trees, branches whipping against their arms. Daniel's breath came fast and shallow. Behind them, the footsteps quickened, keeping pace. The whispers didn't stop. They were everywhere now, weaving through the trees like an invisible web. Daniel. Amelia. Come back. Ahead, the trees thinned, revealing a stretch of fog-covered ground. Amelia skidded to a stop, dragging Daniel down behind a fallen log. She pressed a finger to her lips. Listen. Daniel strained his ears. The whispers had stopped. The footsteps were gone. But something was moving in the mist. A shape, tall, unmoving, watching. Daniel's fingers dug into the bark. What is that? Amelia's voice was barely a whisper. Them. The shape in the mist tilted its head, and then it stepped forward. The figure in the mist moved with an unnatural stillness, silent, deliberate. Daniel's breath hitched as it emerged fully from the fog. It had no face, no eyes, no mouth, no features at all. Just smooth, pale skin stretched too tightly over an elongated skull. It stood motionless for a moment, as if listening. Then it took another step. Amelia gripped Daniel's arm. Don't move. The faceless figure cocked its head. Its body twitched, jerky, unnatural, like a puppet with its strings pulled by invisible hands. Then, in a voice that was neither male nor female, neither young nor old, it whispered, Daniel. Daniel's stomach turned to ice. It was his mother's voice again. His fingers twitched. His throat tightened. Every part of him screamed to run. Amelia leaned in, her voice barely audible. It doesn't know where we are yet. It calls the name to draw you out. If you answer, it finds you. Daniel clenched his jaw. The figure took another step. Then another. It was searching. And then, snap. A twig broke beneath Daniel's boot. The figure snapped its head toward them. A low, inhuman croak rattled from its throat. Then it lunged. Run! Amelia shouted. They bolted. The thing behind them didn't run. It glided, moving in shuddering bursts, flickering between the trees like a skipping frame in a broken film. The whispers surged again, rising to a fever pitch. Daniel. Amelia. Stop. Look. Listen. Branches tore at their skin as they sprinted through the trees. Ahead, Daniel saw it, a ravine. Amelia skidded to a stop just in time. Daniel nearly went over the edge. The drop was at least 50 feet, jagged rocks at the bottom. Behind them, the figure slowed. It stood at the edge of the clearing, watching. And then it wasn't alone. More figures emerged from the trees. 5, then 10, then too many to count. Faceless, unmoving, waiting. The whispering grew louder. The sound surrounded them, pressing against their skulls. Daniel felt something pulling at him. Not physically, but in his mind. The voices were inside. Come closer. Look at us. You belong here. Amelia grabbed his wrist. We have to go. Daniel turned. Where? It's a dead end. She didn't hesitate. The river. Then she jumped. For a fraction of a second, Daniel hesitated. The whispering clawed at his thoughts, urging him to stay. Then he leapt. Cold air whipped past him as he plunged down. He hit the river like a stone, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. Darkness. For a terrifying moment, he couldn't tell which way was up. The current pulled hard, dragging him deeper. He kicked, lungs burning, then hands, strong, pulling him upward. He broke the surface, gasping, and found Amelia gripping his jacket, hauling him toward the shore. They collapsed onto the riverbank, coughing up water. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rush of the river and their own ragged breathing. Then Amelia whispered, "We shouldn't be alive." Daniel turned his head toward the cliffside. The faceless ones stood at the edge, watching, but they didn't follow. They can't leave the forest, Daniel realized. Amelia swallowed. No, but that doesn't mean we're safe. Daniel sat up, shaking. What the hell are they? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out Ethan's notebook and flipped to a page Daniel hadn't seen before. One sentence scrawled over and over, filling the page. They are not ghosts. They are not people. They are the forest. Daniel's skin prickled. Amelia's voice was hollow. And they know we're still here. By the time they made it back to the trailhead, night had fallen. The town's lights were visible in the distance, warm and real. Daniel exhaled, but the weight in his chest didn't lift. Amelia shook her head. They'll come for us again. Daniel studied her. You really believe that? She turned Ethan's notebook to the final page, pointing to a single word, written in smeared ink. Listen. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? Then, somewhere behind them, a whisper. Not from the forest. Not from the wind. From inside Daniel's head. His blood ran cold. They weren't in the forest anymore, and neither were the whispers.